Cada vez las familias son así, hermano. Sí,
More papers?
No, it's your paper. I didn't know if I was hostile.
Here, well, what I understand is that there's a feeling that family farming is not predominant in GFAR.
No, but I agree with you, that's why I laugh. I mean, remember I came to GFAR 3 days ago.
Yeah. Not meaning that, just meaning that many members don't think like us, which, I mean, it's okay.
I mean, to say it in a very light way. So I'm laughing because
Stephanie wrote it, yeah. Well, with the organization.
now maybe we're going to change things.
Hopefully.
Bueno.
Hasiko gara ez da sumari. Igual, atzo komentatu nituela aldaketa batzuk egiteko. Egingo dugula motzago.
Hartu behar dute itzultzeko.
Handa behar.
Itxura nauka, semak.
Zera, hori gauratu esan genuela ingan egituela motzago 2017ko balantzea eta 2018ko plana.
Hori zure kontu, nik utzi itzegin nahi nuke.
Ba, ez esan nahi dut aldaketak proposatzeko eguneko ordenean. Hasieran egiten denez. Motzago egitea 2017ko azalpena eta 2018ko lan plana. Eta gero sartuko genituela 6. konferentziko azalpen bat eta zera eta azkenean da komunikatzeko sistema bat nahi dugula pantailazo batean behintza jendeak ikusi dezala eta
ja. Eguneko ordena.
Eta gero
ez daukanik eguneko ordenarik,
Atzo karpetan zegoen. Eskatuko dugu Marisoli beste.
Bai. Ez daukate. Atzo ez nuen da.
Da, nahi apuntatuko dizut, edo goratzen zara.
Nik emango dizu zure hitza eta zuk manejatuko zure. Egun on guztioi.
Good morning, everybody.
Buenos días a todos.
Good morning and welcome to this, the Assembly, both ordinary and extraordinary, of the World Rural Forum for 2018. And it's especially warm welcome to those of you that have come from other regions of the world, from Asia, Africa, America. We've also had people from the Pacific region, but unfortunately they're not able to be here today. Of course, welcome as well to the people who are nearby from Udapa, Spain, and other organizations from the Basque Country. And welcome to the representatives of international organizations, of course, the FAO. So welcome to all of you. Today's assembly is a very important one because a period of time is coming to an end. That's the period that concluded with the UN declaration of the family farming decade. But it's also an important assembly because we've got a challenge ahead of us, which is to prepare for 2018, this decade, which actually is going to start on the 1st of January 2019, and the work that we need to do for the upcoming 10 years. Today's assembly is important, as you already know. An assembly has its tough side, which involves approving previous year's accounts and the budget for the upcoming year. But there's another important side to the Assembly, which is we're going to debate a profound change to our statutes, because next year our association is going to be 20. Currently, the association is very different to what it looked like in its beginnings. Because if I'm honest, initially we didn't really know what we were going to look like in the future. But now we have experience, we know what we look like, and our future is fairly clear. And that means our statutes need to adapt to the new challenges of the association. And I know this is a little bit tough to do. It's a bit like wading through treacle, but we need to give the initial go-ahead for these new statutes so that they can be then put to the administrators. There's an issue on the agenda as well. Unfortunately, today, one of the most active members of the board, our treasurer, Martín Uriarte, won't be here. His father passed away. The funeral is today, so he won't be able to be with us today. If it's all right with you, we will be sending him our condolences and our encouragement on behalf of the Assembly. Nor do we have with us the person who was here all day yesterday, which is the Secretary of the Board, Nati, from Berede Cooperative in Álava. And that means that we need to appoint a secretary for this occasion, for this meeting. Somebody who's going to have to sign the minutes. So I propose that the secretary for this meeting be one of our members, Joaquin Gorriti. He was here with us yesterday, and today we're going to just ask him to be the secretary for taking down information about the minutes. Unless anybody wants to replace him. So without further ado, after these words of welcome, we'll move on to the agenda. You've all received the minutes of the previous meeting. Normally wouldn't read it. It'd be a bad start to the meeting if we actually had to read it for people. But if nobody has any objections, we could accept it as good. But now is the time. If you've found anything in the minutes of the previous meeting that doesn't look right. But anyway, before carrying on, actually, there is something that I need to clarify. You know that the World Assembly, that all world members participate in, is usually held every 4 years. And today, the international representatives that we have are member of the board and accompanying members, and there are other international members that can't be here, and they're not here actually face to face, although we are connected to them via streaming. But we're hoping that next year everybody will be here, all the members from around the world. I'm now going to ask our director, Austin Ortiz, to please say a few words about 2017. You should have all received via internet, and you've also got some documents in a pack there, and that, we hope, will allow us to be a little more brief in what we have to say, because you've got the documents and you've all had the opportunity to read them, or you can look at them now. So, Austin, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Jose Maria, and welcome to everybody. As a logistics piece of information, I need to let you know that we are broadcasting this General Assembly so that those members of the forum who can't be here personally, at the very least, can follow us over streaming. So we're broadcasting this assembly, both the sound and images as well, so those that are a long way away can follow us. Before starting, I don't know if you've noticed that on today's agenda, there's going to be a regional presentation. The chair has proposed that this be a little more brief, because yesterday's experience has shown us that sometimes we lengthen that. So I'm going to just summarize the 2017 setup and what we were up to, our activities, without going into too much detail about what was happening at a regional level. In 2017, quite clearly, I mean, we could say that the conclusion of 2017 was a fantastic moment when, on the 20th of December at 12 noon, the United Nations General Assembly in New York officially adopted the Decade on Family Farming. That was one of our main aims. We'd been working on this for a year and a half. All regions, all associate entities, and all organizations had spent a year and a half working really hard on this, and on the 20th of December last year, we did it. So that really defines 2017. That was a fundamental event. And actually to achieve that, of course, as an organization and with all our associates, we'd gone through a very long period last year, and to achieve that aim, it was necessary for family farming organizations, national family farming bodies, all had to talk to the governments in their different countries to convince them to support this new initiative. A lot of advocacy work was done before IFAD, FAO, ILC, ICA. We spent a lot of time talking to them, convincing governments, international bodies to support this process. We also have done a great deal of work accompanying the Costa Rican government. I don't know if you know that civil society actually can't formally present a proposal to the UN. It has to be done through a government. In this case, it was the Costa Rican government. And so our organization made a tremendous effort to accompany the Costa Rican government. We spent a lot of time preparing documents, sending letters, attending parallel events in New York, Rome, and other countries to make this possible. And this meant we were able to coordinate and strengthen the Costa Rican National Coordination Committee. This committee was able to keep this idea alive for over a year in Costa Rica. We've also organized public events in New York, in Rome, to promote the idea of the family farming decade. In short, as an organization, we've worked really hard during 2017. We spent an awful lot of time, energy, and effort to achieve this aim. So that's really the high point of 2017. But there's other things that have been going on in 2017. The IYFF+T World Coordination Committee also had a major role to play last year. You know, that's an organization that represents civil society organizations that had a major role in declaring the decade. And of course, then we've got the support of FAO, IFAD, ILC, REAF, CPLP, CELAC, have all had a role. It's not just been our organization. Of course, we've had a lot of work to do, but others have supported us. It's been a shared effort. We've been able to convince many organizations and managed to get many people to support us along our way. We'll look a little bit more at that, but I ought to say that this declaration is important. It's not just that we've achieved that, but it's how we've achieved that. All the work that went into it. Costa Rica led, of course, the effort formally, together with a group of 14 countries in New York. And once it was presented, a further 104 countries supported the initiative, and it was finally unanimously approved. It wasn't just that we've achieved it, it was how we achieved it, the hope that we've generated, the doors that we've opened, the way we've convinced people. And so really, it was an interesting job. Once the resolution was passed, because the decade actually is specified in a resolution, we think it's very positive. It talks about the integrative idea of family farming. It talks about family pastoralism. It talks about artisan fishing. It's not a rigid, closed concept. It's the concept that we usually use. The resolution explicitly talks about national committees, the success of the 2014 year, a series of positive ideas and pointers that we need to make use of. And okay, the achievement for 2017 was the achievement was, of course, this decade declaration, but other things have been done. So I'm going to talk about some of them. For example, the network of national committees of family farming has been broadened. I don't know if you know now that there are committees in over 40 countries. Newcomers have joined us, such as Fiji, Chad, Japan, and many others. And efforts have been being made in the Balkan nations, where initiatives which may take shape have been made. Also, we've made contacts in the US and Canada regarding the decade, because we don't just work in the Southern Hemisphere, but in the Northern Hemisphere as well. And countries such as Japan, the US and Canada are relevant in our agenda. The Support Fund for National Committees is helping us work on 12 national committees of family farming to change public policies in many countries. And I don't want to go on about that too much, but just to give you an example, the Slovakian National Committee on the 16th of May managed to get an approval from their parliament to change their country's constitution, a constitutional change which prevents or makes it very difficult for land grabbing or speculative land purchasing. This is a very interesting example of what national committees, many of which are led by farmers' organizations, can actually achieve. So we work using the Challenge Fund in 12 countries and help a further 40 in the 5 continents. We've also got the guidelines on family farming. CPLP, which is the Community of Portuguese Language Countries, passed some regional guidelines for family farming. And I also like to say that this idea of these guidelines actually was something that came up in 2014 in Brasilia at a meeting which many organizations that are here today, plus others, attended. And this has gradually taken shape and has now been officially passed by 9 countries, 9 Portuguese-speaking countries last year. We're hoping that this will have a positive impact on public policies on family farming in these 9 countries, and we entrust that this encourages other regions to take the same route. As for the work that we do to strengthen participatory research, there's because what we want is a research that is better able to deal with family farming organizations. Yesterday and the day before yesterday, 2 days of work were dedicated to that. And in 2017, a great deal of work was also done within GFAR to define, think about, create alliances, to be able to create this year collective action, which has an aim. Of course, we'll detail that aim later, but its main aim is to improve the way research governance is carried out to better reflect the needs of family farming and to have, at the end of the day, this research a positive impact on people's lives. Okay, finance. Let's talk about that. Of course, 2017 needs to be considered from a finance viewpoint, because we're an organization that needs to be funded. And I'd like to share with you that 2017, had its challenges. The campaign for the family farming decade meant that we had a lot of expenses for an organization such as ours. And that was especially noticeable in the final quarter. There was a lot of belt tightening, rethinking of budgets, and finding different ways of ending up the year as best as possible. We've made a tremendous effort to cut back on non-vital costs in the organizations, and this has required a great deal of energy. Investments had to be made, for example, to organize activities to guarantee that the campaign for this family farming decade was successful, and that's required a lot of effort and sacrifice. But we feel that it's been worthwhile, and in the future, we know that it's created interesting opportunities for us. Internally, in 2017, a lot of work was put into trying to prepare a draft for statute modification, something we're going to be debating during this meeting. And it's required work because I know statutes are a bit of a dry document, but they do regulate various aspects of our association's lives. We've also made progress in creating and strengthening alliances. For example, today, if the General Assembly decides to, we're going to accept 2 new members in Central Africa and in Nepal. And I'm just giving this as an example of the efforts that we make to get people to join and continue in the fight for family farming. In the report that you've all got in your folders, there's also a little note of self-criticism because there's always room for improvement. We think that there's still a lot to be done in the areas of gender and youth. A lot's already been done, but more needs to be done. And also, internal governance is another thing that we need to improve. And we'll be doing so precisely through the debate on the statutes. And I'd just like to finish by saying that we've managed to get the declaration for the family farming decade. It was a joint effort with all the member associations of the World Rural Forum. It's all the regional organizations have had a tremendous role to play in that. Many of them are represented here. AFAC, COPFOPRAM, PROPAC, and ROPA, and PRR, although they're not here, they've also had an important role. BIFO, that was here yesterday and the day before, all of them have had a fantastic role to play. And it's also true that the influence of regional organizations has been a major one. I think that's about all I can say to summarize 2017, José Mari. Does anybody want to make any comments? Any clarification? You've all got a detailed report, the annual report. You should have it. I'd like to highlight the tremendous amount of work done by the technical staff. We actually mentioned that yesterday at the board meeting. There's a lot of work going on, a lot of good work going on. And that's because the people that are in the technical team are very skilled, very committed, and very motivated. And I'd like to say to the staff, on behalf of this General Assembly, if you agree, I'd like to congratulate them, really sincerely congratulate them and thank them for the work well done during 2017, if that's okay. And also, Austin mentioned this, the fact that the decade declaration is a major achievement. Many people feel that WRF is a lobby organization, and people don't seem to know where we get our influences from, because it's not easy to get into the corridors of the UN and get everybody to support you. And I have to make a confession here. And the confession is that our lobby is what makes us strong. It's because we're clear on what we want. That's what makes us a strong lobby. And we always say it openly. We express our true opinions. We're very perseverant. And at the end, we're inclusive. That means we join forces, we listen to our members, we listen to all their opinions, and all of this means that we are a strong lobby. Because at international circles, truth diplomacy, we think, is stronger than any other kind of diplomacy. And so far, that's the road we've taken. I'd also like to highlight that we haven't looked into this very much, but there have been very, very few resolutions presented by the UN that has the support from the outset of 104 countries. I don't want to say there's none, because that would be a little bit daring, but normally resolutions that are presented by the UN get greater or lesser support, of course, but in our case, it was presented by over 50% of the countries that are in the UN General Assembly. And this means that this is a subject which really mobilizes countries. And now what we have to do is make sure that this commitment really is positive for the future of family farming.
If there are no comments, then we will go on. And we will go on to the second part of the report, and that it would be the financial report. So I would ask our director to please briefly explain what is happening with numbers.
Pues si hemos ganado mucho dinero.
And joking if we've made a lot of money or lost money, or how are things. An organization also needs to have the healthiest financial situation to be able to continue working. As I said, it was a challenge. 2017 was a challenge due to the demands of the campaign for the declaration of the decade. As an organization, we've made a great effort. We've had the responsibility and exercised this responsibility, and this has also had an effect on our accounts, mainly in the third quarter from September to December, where we've had to work intensely to make sure that the results are going to be balanced, because that's our objective, to have a balanced end of the year in which there's not a big or too big consumption of the money we have available in our foundation. You have two documents in your folders. One of them is at the end of the report, and you can see the income and the expenses there. And then there's this other one, this other document, that probably it's the most important one, and this is the audit report, and this is the first thing I would like to highlight in this assembly. This year, we've had our accounts audited by the 23rd of February. Usually, we had this first assembly of the year without the accounts being audited yet, because usually we got the reports from the auditing company in March, April, Easter. This year, we started to work since November, so the administration department of the forum has really focused on this to be able to get to this assembly with audited accounts. and we now need the approval of the Assembly, and if you agree on that, then this will be our accounts for this year. I would also like to add that in the first page of the audit, it says, in our opinion, the attached annual accounts express, in all significant aspects, a true and fair view of the assets and financial situation of the association as of 31st December 2017 and of its results corresponding to the financial year ending on that date, in accordance with the regulatory framework for financial information that applies, and in particular with the accounting principles and standards contained therein. This is the view of the auditing company. There are no further notes or requirements from them. So we are very satisfied. The budget has a result of 451 euros. As I said, mainly thanks to the effort of the last month to try and adjust our accounts. It's a budget or a budgetary execution with no big surprises or no new elements. It's been executed in more than an 85%. In general terms, it has been executed as expected. Of course, there's always some items that for one reason or another could have some deviations, but in any case, I believe there are very small deviations that have to do with the logic of evolution of a financial year. Another important part of the income has to do with international bodies. This has been the trend in the last years, and this is something that we're trying to strengthen. So, I don't know if the president wants to add something, but this was the explanation. And of course, I am available if you have any questions. I believe you've highlighted the fundamental elements of the budget. I would like to give you the floor if anyone wants to take the floor. If you have any comments or need any clarification, the floor is yours. And if not, then the financial report will also be approved. I don't know if you've been giving the information, and that's the asset. Yes, then you have all the financial information, and there you will detect that there are some amounts that add up to 635,000 euros. And these are projects that have been approved by international bodies that are pluriannual. So these funds are available for 2018 and 2019. This is an important economic issue because we don't start from scratch. We start with projects that are already ongoing projects with a budget allocated to these projects. So if there no one is against it, then we will say yes to the audit and the results and the financial results. I would also like to add that there is an agreement. There's 451 euros, but the auditors want us to, for the Assembly, to say yes, that's this 451 euros. We'll go to the foundation, if that's okay with everyone. There's no dividends, no distribution of this 451 euros. Okay? Then let's continue with the agenda. In the agenda, we now have the coffee break. But as I see that you are still smiling and you look fresh and no one looks tired, If you don't mind, I think it would be better to continue. Let's continue and have time for the assembly, and then we can delay this, if that's okay with everyone. Okay? Yes, the experts say yes, let's continue, so we will continue then. We've talked about the past. I think it was a good past, but we don't want to be self-complacent. So now we need to talk about the future and what we're going to be doing in 2018 and in future years. So I would ask our director to please tell us about the working plan that yesterday was approved by the board, but that needs the approval of this assembly. And I would also think that this should be explained with the numbers or the figures that would make this plan, this working plan, possible. The working plan, first we have a global summary of what is planned for 2018, and then we had a presentation region by region, and that's exactly what we did yesterday at the board meeting. But due to time issues, as we've decided to add more points into the agenda, we also need to be brief. So I would like to try and summarize and give you an overview of what's foreseen for next year. I would also try to include the proposals made by the board and that have been included in the working plan. And like Jose Mari suggests, we will also have a financial summary, and then there's another part of 2018 that Laura will be explaining, and that is the working plan for the decade. And obviously there is a relationship. So it's also a working plan, but for the decade. And it's, of course, a link to what we do. So the working plan is this document you have in your folders. It says World Rural Forum Work Plan 2018 that has 9 priorities. This does not mean that we don't do other things. It means that we always need to set priorities in our working plan. In fact, this document has 2 parts, and I would like to explain this. This first one up to page 12 is we have the narrative explaining a proposal of priorities to present to the General Assembly for 2018. And then we have a document that is indicators that are not really indicators as such, but working points. And we thought it was also relevant to include this second document because, as you know, we have a strategic plan that is in force till the year 2020, in which we plan 2018, 2019, and 2020. Therefore, the plan is somehow already existing, and here we provide priorities and explain what we want to get done in the year 2018. The first priority you can see in the document is the IYFF plus 10 and the decade of family farming. we've achieved in 2017 to create a magnificent opportunity, the decade, and we like to define it as an opportunity because honestly, the decade can become nothing or a lot, and that's in our hands. So there's a lot to get done for this opportunity to become something big for us. We need to the World Coordination Committee of the IYFF plus 10, and we are secretaries in this committee as World World Forum, and we work on facilitation, communication, and we will continue to do this. We also want to overcome the idea of the yearly meeting that this committee has in October, and we want to generate a live dynamic that lasts the whole year. That is our big challenge. It's not something easy because we're obviously talking about a committee with members from 5 continents, with several languages, and with organizations that, of course, are very busy. So it is a challenge to always maintain that dynamism. On the second page, regarding the guidelines for the promotion of family farming, I would like to highlight that 14 countries are working on these guidelines to promote family farming. This is not a unique standard document because obviously each country develops its own process. There's also work being done on regional guidelines. As we said, CPLP passed these guidelines, and now we want to accompany them in the implementation of these guidelines. So the forum wants to facilitate and promote the implementation of the CPLP guidelines. Also, there is the possibility of the Wrf. To this year, will start to design guidelines to promote family farming. COPROFAM is also working on this, and we would like to see that Wrf prepares these guidelines, and we are speaking with several organizations in different regions, with ROPA, PROPAC, and BIFOM, and we are talking about the possibility of starting a task on regional guidelines with these regions. Regarding the global guidelines for family farmings, a few weeks back in February, there was a meeting in Lisbon, and many of the organizations that are part of the forum participated. This gave us the opportunity to promote global guidelines for family farming, and in 2018, we will continue working on this. The second element, always under the umbrella of the IYFF plus 10, the National Committees on Family Farming, if the Assembly decides that it should be so, will be working to have a relationship of more collaboration amongst the national committees and the different political dialogue platforms existing in different regions like MTCP2, rural dialogue platforms, NES platforms. There's a diversity of agents or stakeholders that do similar tasks, and we would like to try and achieve some convergence. And also regarding committees, there's going to be a regional meeting of committees in the African continent that will bring together the committees of the African region. And in 2018, we would like to try and other committees to be created. We're also analyzing the possibility of promoting more committees in other countries like Cameroon and other countries. And we also consider the possibility of having the work in Spain or France now that the decade has already been declared, because there are also countries that are quite significant, and that's why we want to have a dialogue with organizations to see what the possibilities are and how we can make the most of the decade of family farming in these countries. This year, in March, we will also have the third call of the NCFF support fund, which is one of the main projects that we have. And of course, this will involve a lot of work, and we will also try to improve policies on family farming. In the year 2018, we will also be focusing on participatory research. Yesterday and the day before yesterday, we had a meeting, more than a meeting, a working workshop in this same room with a broad diversity of stakeholders to define a collective action that has the objective, or would have the objective, of improving the governance systems of research systems. This is a subject that we're working on with many organizations, and during those 2 days we try to work on a collective initiative, and in 2018 this will also be one of the issues we will be tackling and dedicating lots of energy, passion, and work. Regarding youth and gender, these are two elements that we need to make an effort to improve, or more than improve, I would say intensify, because some work has been done, but it is not enough. We're also strengthening the relationship with governments and public entities, because whether we like it or not, we need governments that can, through the UN system, also foster these subjects that we want to be addressed. We will be working with FAO and IFAD because they are mandated by the General Assembly of the UN to foster the decade of family farming, but there's still a lot of work to do regarding advocacy and dialogue for the decade to be implemented in an adequate manner. I'm on page 9. We also want to work on the feeling of belonging of the members. This is something that we've included this year as a priority, but this is an ongoing task, more even in an organization like ours, where there's all kinds of organizations, small and big, with different priorities sometimes, and from different places. We've also renewed the statutes. I hope that this clarifies several issues that would help and facilitate this feeling of belonging. We've also started in 2017 a communication system with members, a virtual system, and later on in a couple of minutes our colleague Goizarri will be explaining. So 2018 will be a year in which we will make the effort to achieve this. Regarding the World Rural Forum Secretariat, this year we create the knowledge management area or department, because we see that there is a lot of knowledge in the network of the World Rural Forum, but we are not making the most of this knowledge. We're not promoting it and managing it, this knowledge. So internally, we've decided to change the structure of the Forum Secretariat to pay more attention to knowledge management. And to finish, I would like also to add that this year we will also focus on the preparation of the conference that will take place next year in March, and this year it will require quite a lot of work. to organize the global conference. So this is the summary of what we want to get done in 2018. I didn't detail all the items because I don't believe that's what we want to do in this meeting. But in any case, you have all the information in the documents, and of course the strategic plan is also available if you would like to check this. And if you have any questions, of course, I will be very pleased to answer these questions. So that's the summary, and I don't know if you want me to go to the numbers or... Well, to respect the agenda, let's see if there's anyone that has any comments, suggestions, or questions. And then we will continue, and if not, there will be the approval of this working plan. Excuse me, I forgot to mention something that's important. And yesterday in the board meeting, there were several suggestions of things that should be included. I'm not going to mention all of them, but for example, there was the suggestion of working in the integration space in Central Africa, CAC, if I'm not wrong. There was also a suggestion regarding analyzing more in-depth relationship between MTCP2 and national committees of family farming. There was also mentioning of things regarding guidelines and the RIAF. So yesterday, during the board meeting, suggestions were made that, of course, were included and are included in this working plan.
Todos sabemos.
We all know that we are very busy, but I would recommend that you take some time to read these documents, because this will give us an idea of what we will be focusing on during the next weeks and months. The team is making a great effort developing and drafting the projects, and therefore I think it would be adequate that we all read and reflect on these documents. If there are no comments, well, yesterday there were very important discussions regarding all the points, so today it seems that things are flowing. But as Austin just explained, we will have a new document incorporating all the ideas that came up yesterday, and you will have this document available. But in fact, the working plan you have before us has most of the points included. So we give the approval to this point, and we go on to budget.
Vale, me tengo preparado algo,
Bueno, vamos entonces con...
So this is the budget for 2018. You have your document. This is a budget of 1,016,951 euros. It's a balanced budget. We have the income and the expenses that are balanced. So I believe it is a budget that follows the trend of previous years. It's not a surprising budget for anyone who has seen the previous budgets for the World Rural Forum, even though there are some changes, because of course every year is different to the previous one. In any case, It's a budget that, at least regarding income, has a great part coming from international bodies, which has been the trend in previous years. We don't want to go back in time, but the evolution of the forum since it was created till now, we do observe, and I believe this makes sense, and the board has on many occasions discussed this issue, because now there's been an internationalization that is also reflected in the budget and goes hand in hand with the work that has been developed by the forum. So there's items on membership fees, then projects with international organizations, there are several of them. There are also projects with public administrations, where we have different calls here at the provincial and local level, and we can also access this and be part of this calls. We also have agreements with different entities, and then we have financial income, which is a minor amount. Regarding expenses, they're not special surprises. What we've done, and I would like to explain, is to incorporate as expenses to prepare next year's conference. So we do have some expenses this year to be able to organize the conference in 2019. And you can see this in some of the items in expenses. I would also like to highlight that regarding expenses, we've changed some of the part of the structure. For example, with the creation of a knowledge management area. So the amount that before went to communication now goes to this area, and we don't focus so much on printing material or dissemination or communicating only. What we do is to try and make the most of the knowledge in the network and to manage it. So somehow this is also reflected in the budget. And obviously the working plan and the budget need to go hand in hand.
I'd also like to perhaps just highlight that we are working, and this is something that yesterday was spoken about at the board meeting. We're working on a new budget structure, because at the moment what you see are the income and expenditure. But what we're going to try to do is to somehow design it in such a way that we can see what money needs to be spent where, and then put the corresponding income in another column so that you can see this more clearly. It's more transparent. We think it's more conceptually correct as well. Because actually we're not talking about income here. We are not an association that has an income. What we need to do is look at the expenses that we have and how we can achieve money to cover those expenses. So we're going to change the way we present the budget in the future, and we will, at the next meeting of the board, be showing this new, and of course at the General Assembly, this new way of illustrating how our budget is spent. This isn't by no means a budget that anybody can be surprised by, especially if you've seen former budgets. If you look at the income column, quotas are only 7%. 52% of our budget comes from international organizations. I think 26% more or less come from the public administration, projects with public administrations. Agreements with cooperatives and foundations, NGOs, etc. is around 13%. And now looking at expenses, this is a service-based organization, and staff and consultancy services account for almost 41% of expenses. Funding transfers to partners, 42.6%. There's an important part in the forum that are traveling expenses. We've got a 10-man team that has to travel a great deal. And although we apply criteria of dignity, austerity, expenses are going up. What are really, really controlled are overheads, which are just 5% of our overall expenses. As our director said, in the future, we'll be working on budgetary management and the way we present budget. And what we'll do is link or tie income to the different expenses. We're going to start this new system this year in 2018 of presenting the budget in that way. And I think in the future you'll be able to see more clearly what each and every one of the euros that is spent on, how it's spent. I think they're cautious budget, balanced, of course. And unlike what we've already said previously in our meetings, we don't need to look backwards, but we do need to look perhaps in the review mirror. And this year, actually, we're fairly calm about these budgets because actually a large part of the funding that we require is already guaranteed. You may have heard me spoke on more than one occasion of the fact that at the beginning of the year we've only got 30% of our income guaranteed, and that always makes us very nervous on the board when that happens. But this year, I haven't actually calculated it, but I reckon it's between 80 and 90% of our funds that are already guaranteed. So, if it's okay with you, let's accept this budget. I want to say something additionally, which is that we'd like to be wrong, but we always prefer to be wrong for having been too cautious. If over this year we manage to get greater income, we will promise to spend them appropriately. But I think we've got a balanced budget and a cautious budget. So if that's okay, or if anybody wants to make a question, we're here to answer it. If not, we can approve the budget.
Este silencio lo interpreto como...
These silence, I assume, means that you accept the budget. Thank you very much. We'll carry on working. Let's now... well, the directors asked me, who's a little bit more human than I am, that we deserve a coffee. So, when Laura's finished talking about the plan for the decade, we'll have a coffee break, because yesterday we got into a difficult situation in which we'd spent 3 hours sitting down without actually ever getting up and having a coffee or anything. So we won't repeat that mistake today. Before talking about the draft action plan of the Decade of Family Farming, I'd like to thank everybody here because right from the original members and the regional organizations, which are very, very important for organization, and the Forum Secretariat, all of you have made it possible to today talk about what I would call is a historical moment, because in the UN has accepted the evidence and has recognized that family farming is part of the solution to the problem and doesn't generate problems. So I don't know, Marisol, if do you have the UN resolution? I think it's in the folders. There in the UN resolution, you can see that the UN recognizes that family farming needs to be at the center of all policies. It recognizes that policy dialogue platforms are a great tool. And that's why I want to congratulate you all, because this decade is an opportunity, and it's a decade for everybody that's working, and in this room it's everybody that's working for family farming. There's a photo of the Assembly's resolution, which includes those countries that put this proposal to the UN. I think there you can see Costa Rica, Angola, the Dominican Republic, Egypt, Ethiopia, France, Spain, Indonesia, Italy, Mexico, Philippines, Thailand, Portugal, and Uruguay. All of this is the result of a great deal of work by those of you that are here and that have convinced countries that weren't so convinced of how important it is to initiate this decade of family farming. So it's a political opportunity, very important, but it doesn't have content yet. So that's why we're here. We've worked a great deal to get this opportunity, and the World Rural Forum and all members of the World Rural Forum are not going to waste this fantastic opportunity. Here, as we say, the agenda hasn't been defined. The governance of the agenda hasn't been defined. The only thing that's been defined is the objectives, which include reducing poverty, fight against climate change, not leave anybody behind. This is what the UN says. We include this. We include other objectives, of course, which include to reduce malnutrition, to make family farming more visible, raise the profile of family farming, introduce the agenda of family farming in all research agenda, increase cooperation between the different stakeholders, promote a generational inclusion, so that youngsters feel they have a role to play in family farming, that they have a future, and improve the situation of agriculture. Once again, I'd like to reiterate that the decade's governance hasn't been defined yet, and the agenda's actually not been defined yet. That's what we need to work on, and those of you that know us know we will do so. I also wanted to say that the international context, in some cases, very positive. At least we need to see the positive side of it. That is, there are some sustainable development goals that do consider, to a certain extent, family farming. And this is like a following wind that supports us. As our American colleagues said, this is in a context in which in some Latin American countries there are many governments that actually aren't concentrating on family farming. So we need to use our opportunity to do what we can. We need to be very ambitious, as Ifad said. We need to change the vision of things. We've here included how we see things, and we've seen how maybe we need to set up perhaps a time plan that fits in with the Sustainable Development Goals, where family farming forms a part of the core strategies, that there's not so much dichotomy between urban and rural areas for harmonious development, that showcases much of the technologies devised in rural areas, which are a lot more valid than, in some cases, a lot of research. So in this vision, food systems are actually a lot closer to cities. There is what we can call neighborhood agriculture or proximity agriculture. There are possibilities of employment, not just in production, but also in processing the food. This is the view that we want to get across. This is our vision. How are we going to do that? As said earlier, it's not defined yet, but the World Rural Forum and all its associates is really what's driven forward this proposal. And we're in a privileged position to propose things. The World Rural Forum and other organizations together sit on a committee. The World Coordination Committee is what it's called, together with other NGOs and other organizations that promote family farming in different continents. And we're developing a proposal to put to the UN before the UN starts thinking about what they want us to do. So what we try to do is to get there first before the proposals to them, so that they can then channel through the FAO and IFAD the work that needs to be done. The World Rural Forum and the World Coordination Committee, the WCC, is beginning to set this machinery up and get it going. And that's what I'm trying to represent through that a slide, through that image. Some of the things that we say need to be our guiding principles, because what we've said is that we are delivering a proposal to the UN to get the UN to define an agenda that organizations are happy with, that really brings about transformative change of realities in different regions and around the world. And how can we do that? We feel that on many occasions we should concentrate on agreements that are already being signed by countries and try to get them implemented. Another principle that we're insisting on is that family farming organizations do know what the solutions to their problems are. So we feel that all stakeholders, especially farming organizations and national committees on family farming and other organizations that already exist, should have a key role about when the agenda is implemented and how it's prepared. I'm going through very quickly, but I want to give you an idea of the proposals that are in this plan. These include measures to access resources. I think you probably all agree that these are the priorities. Promote programs that support young people, research that concentrates on family farming, especially public research, measures for resilience to mitigate climate change, support platforms, dialogue platforms. Here we write national committees, but there are many other platforms, infrastructures, effective access to public services, the promotion of the association between family farmers and their different organizational forums. And of course, funding bodies, programs, and other relevant stakeholders who need to work together. These are measures, national measures, but there are some regional as well. And I'm going to just touch on some of the most ambitious regional measures and provisions that try to draw the attention of international bodies. And I wanted to highlight something that was debated quite heatedly in the board meeting yesterday. I'm sure that not all these commitments are going to be accepted by governments, but we want to be ambitious. We want to get as many things included in the agenda as possible. The more we do put in, the better our work. Sometimes it's just a matter of going beyond and then trying to reach an agreement. Many of you that are here know the story of the forum. Nobody initially thought that the World Rural Forum would ever reach UN, and yet we've done it. We've got there. Nobody would have thought that after a year the UN was going to say, yes, a decade was necessary, but they did so. So we don't want to just be unambitious and simple about our approach. I'm going to carry it on a little and just try to speed up because people are looking at me. One thing that was said during the international year and was debated yesterday, which is that we need to showcase family farming. Esther from AFA said, you know, we want a decade of family farming which makes Asian farmers smile, which gives them an opportunity in their territory so that they can say to their children, stay in this, on this farm, carry on working in this activity. That is showcase true campaigns that recognize the role of family farming as something that's worthwhile in the future. And this is something that we're going to insist us on. Another is that the agreements that have been made be actually abided by. And another is the recognition of the right to land, to water, to seeds. Another is to enhance platforms for planning dialogue and developing public policies, because sometimes those organizations, when they know about these problems, some research centers that know about solutions and that may be able to research into them, when they sit down with governments and other agents, that's where the seed to solve these problems can be sown. Enhancements of family farming organizations, because many times they need support to develop their capacities. The adoption of the Decade of Family Farming by the Committee on World Food Security. This is an organization where all countries are present, as well as civil society. It has a great deal of importance in the governance of the world farming system, and we feel that this organization should also adopt the decade. It needs to be something that's everywhere and that's taken as something which is vitally important. In this way, we feel that family farming concentrates on all areas. Otherwise, earlier people spoke about regional, national and international guidelines. What are they? Well, they're a series of guidelines and of general tools that come to say what should be considered in all kinds of policies to make sure that family farming is included. Yesterday, somebody spoke about how territorial policies affect family farming. Well, these kinds of guidelines need to be taken into consideration. Agreements need to be struck regionally and generally about what should be taken into consideration if we're going to respect and enhance family farming. Another, a little bit more ambitious, is to be able to develop a global fund to implement family farming, include family farming in public policies. Agreements do come about, but funds sometimes are needed to implement this. The approval of farmers' rights, because the right to seeds and land is something that needs to be included in human rights. There's already an agreement. So point 9 talks about the agreement to get countries to invest in family farming, a certain percentage of their GDP. This is something that African states have already accepted. They have an agreement to invest 10% of their GDP in agriculture. And strengthening women's farmers' networks, especially through a series of policies that support land access, credit access, and funding for women farmers, which in many countries is far lower than for men. Something that's been repeated on many occasions while we've been meeting is the promotion of experience sharing. This is so important for farmers so that they can see part of the solution to their problems. Research has been reiterated time and time over the last few days as well, how two things need to happen. We need to attend to the needs that organizations and farmers know they have, and secondly, recognize also the knowledge that's out there that many farmers already have. Here we highlight the fact that we're in an important moment, because every 2 years the UN is going to have to evaluate the progress of the decade and its impact. So over and above our areas of influence that we all have, and you all have specifically, we think that we've got a new possibility to become advocates in this area. I wanted to also remind you that this plan was built with the contribution of regional organizations, regional family farming organizations, the national committees of family farming. So a lot of efforts have been made to try to see what can happen in 10 years. And I've given an example here. For example, the Kenya committee that's thought about what can be achieved in 10 years, a series of policies that they feel need to be changed or improved upon. And that they feel that the National Committee on Family Farming can be this organization, so that really changes that they need are brought about. Colombia is another example. They've worked a great deal at a municipal level, at a regional level, national level. They've worked to try to look at these kinds of inputs, how they visualize and how they can influence their government, so that truly are changes in these countries' policies. To summarize, I'd say that we've got a very ambitious draft action plan that we're going to try to agree on with the WCC, and we're going to try to make it as ambitious as possible. As much of political change, policy change, will be included in this decade, this action plan for the decade. If we do that, of course, we will be better able to achieve our aims. There's still a lot to be done, but our starting point is good if we're going to be able to influence. Thank you.
Bueno, gracias, Laura.
Thanks, Laura.
También tienen el documento entre sus.
You've got a document in your document pack. If anybody wants to make any comments, this is a little bit of a where we're heading document. What sort of possibilities do the decade have? Yesterday and today, we had the word opportunity used a lot. We've got a great opportunity ahead of us. There's a huge consensus surrounding that. What we need to do is to make it happen. You know that when we move in international spheres, there's a lot of people that don't believe us. You know, it's almost like once you do get, there's a lot of disbelief, a lot of time, and when an agreement is reached, people think, oh yeah, but then how do we make it happen? But we have worked so hard for this agreement to be achieved. Now we know that there's a lot of work to be done to actually make sure that these agreements are abided by. This is a very varied sector. When you talk to different parties in our sector, you find that many countries, many family farmers are just totally swamped by problems. They've got lots of problems and they're always very big ones, and they just don't know where to begin. And when they decide where to begin, they don't have the sufficient resources even to take the first step. So for the forum and the organizations that belong to the forums are all here to facilitate this road so that good diagnoses are made to help good plans be made so that needs are properly prioritized. And I always give an example of that, which is you can use for animals or vegetables, which is that we can make an excellent plan for genetic improvement, but if before that we haven't done a health plan, then we're not going to do very much. What I mean with that is or another example. If we're talking about promoting agriculture and yet we've got no water or our water's polluted, or we don't have proper waste disposal programs, then we're going to have major problems. So all of this, but problems are big, they're complex, but we need to believe what we're doing. Believe in what we're doing. Don't be skeptical. Laura said, and this came up yesterday, that the political environment at the moment isn't the most appropriate one. And I was looking that these sort of frivolous words are said, and that there is this trend, whereas we are here on the day-to-day. So let's not get distracted by that sort of background noise. Let's try to maintain our positivity. I'm not going to give you any more sermons. That's it. Does anybody want to make any comments? Go on, take the floor. Alessandro, off you go.
Alejandro.
Alessandro, come here.
Merci beaucoup. Je vous remercie de l'opportunité d'être ici.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the chance of being here and being able to read in detail the declaration of the Decade of Family Farming officially adopted by the UN. This is linked to what GFAR is doing, because the paragraph talking about innovation and technology, not only as you've expressed, very really we're not in the truth diplomacy, it doesn't mention the problems that we face and what is the lack of capacity of research to give a response to the needs of family farming. So if you read that paragraph, I have the impression that innovation and research could provide support to family farming. And even worse, it says it has to do with going to a market economy, and I think that's terrible, and that's why I believe it's important to have in our regional and national action plans this fundamental issue.
De ne pas conseiller, mais de obliger.
And I think it has to be compulsory, and we can do this through the strength of the farmers' associations to have scientific research so that this research is able to also acknowledge farmers' research. I think it's very important to bear this in mind. So once again, we are in the diplomacy of lies, and for many years I worked in the United Nations, and I left for exactly this reason. So there is this gap between diplomacy and action plans. So they take this into account once again, because innovation needs to change as well as research and to be available for those that really need it. Thank you.
¿Quieres hablar?
Roberta, would you like to say something? I would just like to briefly say that as this decade is a tool of that brings light to us, we know this is a national and international and local space that will help us get public policies from governments to support family farmers in the whole world. It's not possible that, according to the FAO, almost half of the world's hunger is in the rural areas. So let's start with this. On the other hand, we produce, according to the statistics, 70 or 80% of the food in the world. Therefore, some things need to be fixed. We have the threat of climate change, and I really liked what Alessandro said, because we really talk and talk, but at the end of the day, we don't reach out to the farmers. Research, respect, the campaign so that people know when they buy a kilo of beans or potatoes or rice where it comes from, how it's produced, and how the people that produce this live. So it has been a great campaign to showcase rural areas and the women in rural areas, and the stimulus that needs to be provided to the youth. So this campaign, this decade, is a wonderful fighting tool that we have in our hands as farmers and farmers organizations, and for all those that are committed, even if they're farmers or not, with the issue of nutrition and agriculture. So we now have high hopes with this decade to be able to fight in the world. And I would really like to thank the forum and acknowledge the forum's role in structuring this worldwide. It is true that all of us have been involved in the process. But at the end of the day, we needed this structuring, and this wouldn't have been achieved without the forum. So I believe that in this assembly, we need to acknowledge the work carried out by the forum. Thank you. Alberto is Vice President of the CONTAC, which is the most important agricultural labor union in Brazil. He's also General Secretary of COPROFAM, which is the coordinator of organizations of family farmers in South America. And he's also responsible for its international relationships. And Alessandro comes from the GFAR, from the GFAR's Secretariat. Anyone else would like to add something?
Nathanael.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. As I said yesterday at the board meeting, we need to know that the declaration of the Decade of Family Farming is an opportunity for us, something we need to make the most of. As you've said, this is a way of transforming this diplomacy of lies and to make it a diplomacy of truths. As what we demand has been accepted at the top level with the declaration of the Decade of the Family Farming, as small organizations, we have a great opportunity here. So we need to work together jointly and in a collective way, and also with this collective action that we're putting in place. As I said before, we need to make the most of this opportunity we've been given and that we've achieved to have a global fight and global hope. Nathanael is president of one of the farming organizations coordinating agencies in Central Africa. He represents one of the organizations that has applied to be a member of the World Rural Forum, and this would be decided later on. The board has said yes, but of course we need your opinion too. Any further comments? Well, it's half past 11, almost half past 11. So let's have a coffee break and we will continue at 12. Thank you.
Bueno, a ver, un pequeño relajo nos merece.
We did need a coffee break, but let's continue with the meeting, please.
Para los que acabáis de llegar, que ha venido alguna nueva incorporación, bienvenidos.
For those of you that have just arrived, welcome. I'm sure you've been given the folder with all the documents. So you need to stay for an extra hour or to read that on your own time. Continuing with today's agenda, there's something we couldn't address yesterday in the board, and it's something very important for the decade, and that is the international conference that we will have in March next year in this same place. The person responsible for this conference in the World World Forum's team is Stephanie, who's here with me, and she will be explaining what's the idea and what has been organized for the 6th conference.
Bueno, hoy voy a hablar en castellano, que mi presentación.
Hello, I'm going to speak in Spanish. This year we've decided to start with the organization of the 6th Global Conference, which will be the 6th Global Conference on Family Farming, a decade to improve the life of farmers and family farmers, and of women farmers and family farmers, sorry. This will be a part of the, or we will be in the decade that starts in 2019 for family farming. It will also be the 20th anniversary of the World Rural Forum, and we already have a date. It will be from the 26th to the 29th of March in the same place. The objective is to have a plan that will be implemented from 2019 to 2028 at a local, regional, and global level. So we will make the most of this framework and the work that has been done previously, and we will have exchanges of all the members to work on the action plan for the decade that Laura mentioned previously. You have a document in your folders with more specific objectives. I would also like to say once again that the priorities also include youth, women, and access to natural resources, land and water, beyond the dialogue platforms, guidelines, and participatory research. This is a draft. You can see it on the screen, but we still can change things. The first day, we will have a meeting of the youth in family farming and a meeting of women in family farmer, so that they can discuss and contribute with a common position and ideas for the action plan. In the afternoon, we will have the meeting for the World Coordination Committee. On the 27th, we will have the opening conference, and then we will start to working in the different working groups, focusing on the working lines of the IYFF plus 10, national committees, guidelines, and participatory research. On the 28th, we will have the conclusions and a discussion in a plenary session, and then the closing of the conference. In the afternoon, as in the 6th conference, we hope to have most of the members and collaborators of the forum with us, we thought we should have a meeting of the national committees or platforms of the 5 continents. We also want to take up some space for those entities that want to make proposals of other activities. And finally, as we will all be there, the last day we will have the International Board, and in the afternoon the General Assembly. And as it will be the 20th anniversary of the World Forum, we would also like to pay tribute to the most relevant people in the forum's history. And there's also a proposal of a working session of the new board that we believe should take place the next day so that they have time to work and also to rest. So regarding organization and time, we've started already to work. We've employed Eventia, which is a company from Vizcaya, for the logistics of the event. And there was also a proposal of a possible collaboration with FAO and IFAD. We still don't know if this will happen, but this will be the possibility, as in 2019. As I was saying, this is also the first year of the decade. And I think that was everything.
Bueno, sabéis.
You know that we still have 1 year. 1 year goes by really quickly. Before the summer in this hemisphere, we would like to have this ready for the board. And I believe, well, first of all, thank you, Stephanie. Stephanie is Swiss. Her mother tongue is French, but she made the effort to speak her perfect Spanish. So as he said, for the global conference, we would like to see a view of society and a horizon for the next 20, 30 years of family farming. Sometimes family farming is not seen as something appealing for the youth or for women, but we also see that there's great uncertainties regarding the future of family farming. So we would like for some international expert to give us a view of how things could be in a 20, 30-year future, and what would the future for family farming be. If you have any names or any names you can please make this suggestion to us if you can think of anyone. But I also want to be clear, we've never paid for any of these key speakers, so we need a high-level speaker, but we cannot pay them. We can pay for travel expenses and accommodation and, of course, a small gift, but we won't be able to pay for this keynote speaker. So if you have any suggestions or any names come to your mind, please let us know. Regarding the conference, I would like to add a couple of things. First of all, it's open to suggestions. That's why we are showing you a draft program so that we can adapt it. So if you have anything you want to suggest or anything you think should be included, please let us know. Also, receiving suggestions in February 2019 is something difficult for us because we won't be able to adapt things. So please, as members of the forum, make your suggestion as soon as possible so that we can include all that in the program. Also, in this framework of Board and General Assembly of the World Rural Forum. We give you a date for these meetings. And you obviously also have a role there. And also regarding the decade, I would like to add two things. One, it could be useful, and I say could because this conference could be a way of officially having a launch of the decade. This is something we're going to suggest and work on it, but we don't know if it will be so. And two, if we're able to achieve this, we would like for this conference to be a space where there could be an approval of the action plan for the decade of family farming. But as Jose Mari said yesterday in the board, the WCC would have to previously say yes to the plan. There should be a negotiation with FAO and IFAD so that this would also be accepted by them. So we would need previous conditions to be able to achieve this, but the possibility is there. And if we work on it, both the approval of the plan and the launching of the decade could take place inside the framework of the global conference. And let's see if the diplomacy of truth allows us to have for example, the General Director of the FAO in his last year of mandate, the General Director of the FAO from Brazil started his mandate on the 1st of January 2012, 10 days after the United Nations proclaimed 2014 the year of family farming. We had the honor of being received by him on the 23rd of January 2012. That's 23 days after the start of his mandate, and we would like for his last year to also be a year in which he can give us some place so that he can attend this conference and have an official opening for the decade of family farming. There's people in this room that know him well. And I know there's people that will do everything that's possible so that Bilbao and this event is considered to be an important event by FAO, and the same I would say of IFAD and other government representatives. As you all know, important things said by important people have a multiplying effect that is much higher than important things said by people that are not considered to be that important, even though we're all equally important.
¿Está bien? Venga, bueno. Bueno, ahora tenemos
Now we have two other items in the agenda. First of all, we have the statutes.
Aburridos, son propensos a los matices y
So, are there any questions or comments regarding this issue? If not, we will welcome them with an applause.
Y antes de seguir, me gustaría, les pediría que nos dirijan unas palabras tanto al presidente de PROPAC como al presidente de AFA.
And I would also like to give the welcome to PROPAC as well as the other organization. And you have the floor, if you want to say anything.
Solo para clarificar.
Just to clarify, the two organizations are PROPAC and Community Self-Reliance, which is an organization from Nepal that in this case comes with the president of AFA. But he also represents his NGO from Nepal, and for some time we've been working together and sharing experiences and collaboration. The board has accepted this yesterday, and I just wanted to add this information. And as the president said, you have the floor. Nathanael, maybe you want to say something?
Merci beaucoup, Président. Merci, Directeur. Merci aussi à
I would like to thank the chair, the director, and I would like to start by introducing my organization. I come from Congo, and I'm a family farmer. The organization I represent is a national organization, which is the Confederation of Family Farmers in Congo, and it started working with the World Rural Forum since 2009. We've worked in the framework of the campaign for the IYFF. At the time with José Osaba. We were with them in Brazil, in Benin, and we were also here, and we usually talk with Sylvie, who is the coordinator of the African region for the World Rural Forum. So, as I said, we've worked with different organizations in Congo, but our organization in 2009, without knowing that there was going to be an international year for family farming, launched a national campaign to promote family farming. So, when in Malawi in the year 2010, we saw this. We saw that the World Rural Forum officially presented in the Conference of Agriculture Ministers in Africa, and I was there. So we decided to support the celebration of the declaration of the IYFF. Since then, our organization has been chosen due to the International Year of Family Farming, the chair of the Committee of Family Farming in Congo. So our organization is a member of Via Campesina and also a member of the regional platform of family farmers in Central Africa. Beyond all these contributions, in the year 2007, in the PROPAC General Assembly, I was elected as its president. So I would like to explain that I know about family farming. I've worked with the World Rural Forum, and we wanted to have a greater influence in the 10 most important organizations in our region so that they were part of and became part of the World Rural Forum. So really, it made sense to be part of the forum because we all belong together, and that's why we wanted to become part of the World Rural Forum. We've worked really hard since October. I represent the region and the civil society in my region, and also a member of different working groups on governance. And also, we usually go to Rome to speak about those issues we're defending here today. So, becoming a part of the World Rural Forum is not only a dream, but also a reality. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's a good afternoon. First, I would like to thank WRF board and general members, and others observers, and then the staffs accepting the CSRC's membership. We are very grateful and proud today because it's a CSRC established in 1993 to promote the family farming and secure the land rights of the smallholder, especially landless, tenant, and smallholder peasants in Nepal. CSRC has been strengthening people's organizations called National Land Rights Forum, where around 150,000 farmers are organized, smallholder are organized. And CSRC has been working around 300,000 smallholders to promote their land rights and family farming. CSRC is also working with Ministry of Land Reform and Agriculture to promote the family farming and security of land tenure of smallholders. Right now, we have a campaign on basically the family farming and secure land rights of smallholders in Nepal. So NLRF and CSRC has been together. It's facilitating this campaign across the country. Now CSRC is also the member of ILC, and we are basically facilitating and influencing government and other stakeholders on the family farming cases in Nepal. In this context, I really like to work with the World Rural Forum and to promote the family farming campaign in Nepal and South Asia, and also the we feel our great honor to give more responsibility on this. Thank you.
Bueno, con estas dos incorporaciones.
With these two new members, now we have a more important presence in the heart of Africa, and also we've now are able to be in Nepal.
Sí, yo solo, bueno, quisiera.
I would like to add that we've been working with both organizations for a long time already. Nael, the president of PROPAC, has explained that in practice and in reality, we've had been working with both entities for a long time, and now it becomes official. So I would like to welcome you. I am very happy because they are not only relevant organizations in their region that believe in family farming, but beyond that, I also consider them to be friends. So this is something that really makes me happy. Thank you.
La comunicación es una cosa.
Communication is a very important issue. And communication for an association as the World Rural Forum is a key element.
Tecnologías de la comunicación.
But as you know, communications technologies have advanced a great deal, and to be as modern as possible, we want the optimum communication systems as possible. So we've set up a communication system called Slack. And our expert and the person in charge of communication, Oisane, is going to give us a very brief explanation of what Slack actually is, so that we can all use this technology and this communication system. Some of us are going to find this difficult, and I include myself in that group of people. But let's allow Goisani to explain to us. Firstly, I'd like to say that I've spent 2.5 years at this forum, and Jose Mari still doesn't know my name. Goisarge, by the way, means muy UNL thing, but that is Jose Mari quite included in the strategic plan of the World Rural Forum in 2016. One of the things to strengthen the organization that was included was to set up this digital internal communication system. We'd already started to beginning to use a digital tool at the secretariat, which facilitates direct communication, not just via emails, but also via Slack, as Jose Mari said. And what we started to do just a year ago now was to see inside each organization that's a member of the forum, at least two contacts that would be contact people for the organization within the World Rural Forum. These two contacts are going to be contact staff via Slack. Okay, it's a very simple tool to use. It's you can use it on a telephone, on a normal telephone, a smartphone, on your computer. It's an app. It's not as complex to use. I mean, Jose Maria actually does know how to use it. He says it's complicated. Actually, it's just a matter of getting used to it. The more you use it, the better, and the more useful you'll find it. And it really isn't complex at all. In addition, it has all different kinds of tools. It's not just to chat or to directly send messages to each other, but it also allows us to share documents, working documents, photos, create groups. It's like a combination of WhatsApp, Skype, email. It's a very complete package, and you can also make phone calls. I don't know if... Well, visually, it's what you can see on the screen. That's what it looks like. So in this case, there's a communication channel which has just been created for the organizations that are members of the World Rural Forum. There are 99 members, including the team at the World Rural Forum. And I encourage all the organizations that still don't have people that they've earmarked to join Slack to please appoint a couple so that I can explain to you how to use the tool and not to fear it. Don't be frightened of contacting us, of just saying hello to us in the morning. We always like that. And that's it. Thanks. Thanks so much, Goizargi. And actually, this that looked like it was a communication tool actually is a little bit more than what you might think at the outset. Because actually it turns out that our organization has associates in 5 continents, so it's impossible to get them to come together once a month to talk and to debate. So we need tools that will allow us to do so, because distances between us are tremendous. So this is an effort that we're making to be closer to you, to our member organizations. The idea is to improve the information flow from the Secretariat to our organizations, but also so that different member organizations can ask for information and propose things to us. This is also provides us with the possibility of making consultations when necessary. For example, we can consult members about any decisions that may need taking. And of course, we know there's a General Assembly, there's a board. They all have their powers, and we're not trying to undermine theirs, but everything is designed to help the information flow. Our statutes that we're going to be looking at shortly, you may have seen that there's a possibility that one of the board meetings, and we know that the board is an international body, one of the board meetings may be able to have one of its meetings using this system, because as we already know, we've got board members who don't live here, and live in different countries around the world. So this might, for some of you, seem just like an accessory. What I want you to realize is it is important. It's an important tool. It's a way of being closer, of sharing more information, and of course, of taking actions that actually meet the needs and interests of of our associates. So it really is an important tool. That's what makes it important, especially if we're able to use it properly and to really make it be a benchmark for our member organizations. I just wanted to highlight that. Daniel's is in charge of the Secretariat in Asia and in Eastern Europe as well. As Jose Maria said, I'm in charge of Asia and the Pacific, and I live in Jakarta. And I wanted to explain my personal experience with this tool. I use this tool every single day to work with the members of the Secretariat, the Forum Secretariat, the majority of whom live in the Basque Country. Some are in Arkaute, others in Bilbao and surrounding areas. And for me, this is a tool. It's a bit like my office. It's like a virtual office. And it's the tool that really allows me to work every single day as if I were here, or with them, in the same room, or next door. The room next door with Goisargi, with Austin and everybody else. Another couple of things to give us a bit more information about the Asian context is that yesterday you actually, as you can see in the computer there, but actually you can have it on your phone. You can have it in your smartphone. It works really well on a smartphone. It's so practical, so useful, and okay, I know there are some people who don't have a computer, don't have time to sit down in the office in front of a computer, but it works on the phone. I'd even say it's actually a lot easier than on a PC. So please install this app. It's a really simple app. Stick it on your phones.
Para los usuarios torpes.
And for clumsy users, it's another advantage, which is that every time somebody joins Slack, that they tell you that there's something important for you. I've learned, more or less, how to become a user, a Slack user. But I think it's a really, really practical communication tool. Please contact me when you need any support, any help. That's what I'm here for. Thanks, Goisargi. And I got your name right that time, by the way.
Bueno. Ahora vamos a entrar en el tema de los estatutos.
Okay, we're now moving on to the tricky subject of statutes. But before we look at the different articles of our statutes, I want to just tell you a little bit about them. These organization statutes were drawn up in 1999. Some small modifications have been made since then to try to adapt them to the Associations Act, but we've never really gone into look at them in depth. And the majority of you here know that back in 1999 we were still we'd just been born. We're like newborns, and now we're going to be 20 very shortly. So we've taken a look at the statutes, and we've discovered that there are 4 areas where we need to make some modifications that really reflect what the forum is now and what it would like to be in the future. And these 4 areas, and I'm going to mention them now, and then we'll look at them in detail. Also, actually reflect some legal changes. As you know, the law requires you to adapt certain items in your statutes. Because legislation is dynamic, but the four aspects that we're going to reflect on and take decisions, if possible, is initially our status, our social status, which, and using the language back in the 1999. But it's important that we actually adapt our name and our statutory scheme. So there are going to be several changes. Secondly, our government bodies and how those operate, i.e., what I mean by that are the board, the assemblies, the meetings that are held. These all need to be adapted because the current situation requires that. The third is our members. You know that the forum initially was comprised of individual members who decided that it was important to set up an international association to support rural development and farming. And this has changed. The forum actually has made no subsequent efforts to include individuals. In fact, quite the opposite. We've got many institutional members now. And for many years now, new members have mainly been farmers' associations, either regional or national, and there have been no new individual members joining. And on many occasions, people have asked us, what are these individual members doing in the association? So now is the day, is a time when we've begun to think that, yes, these individual members that were very important at the beginning of the forum become honorary members, because the future of the forum really now lies with what we call legal entities. We want these people to carry on being members, but a different kind of members, honorary members, so that all international organizations have to carry on explaining why we've got these individual members, because it's kind of difficult to understand for those people that don't know our history. And a final item on today's agenda, which is the conflictive one, not because it's any more important than anything else, but more because it's difficult to cope with, which is the issue of fees, membership fees. In the budget that we've just passed today, you may have noticed that actually some of the fees that we charge to some international members, the banking fees to actually get them were higher than the fee itself. And other members don't have funds to cover their fees, but are very important to us and contribute to us in many other ways. So we debated this in the board meeting yesterday, but we realized it's complex because for an organization that's local, charging them 1,100 euros for a fee is not a lot of money. But for an Asian organization or a South American organization, 1,100 euros is an awful lot of money. So we are going to put some thought to that, because in the new statutes, what we've contemplated is that some fees can be paid in kind. But also, this is another tricky issue. Because what happens? Well, if all members say, "Oh, I'll pay in kind," who's gonna then put money into the organisation? So we've tried to include some kind of a requirement attached to payment in kind, because an organisation that's got a budget of €1 million can't say that they don't have 1,000 euros to pay the forum, but an organisation that only has a budget of 10 or 15,000 euros, of course, they can't pay a membership fee of 1,100 euros to this organisation. So we really need to set up some kind of internal regulations so as to be able to say, okay, those that say that they can't pay a monetary fee, then they need to prove it. But these are the subjects, these 4 subjects that we're going to just now look at. And just to, so that you know how we're going to do this. We've consulted with the company registers, so as not to make a change, then it get approved, and it get rejected, because it would never end that way. So the procedure is going to be the following. Today, what we're going to try to do is pass our statutes. The statutes will be sent to the registering authorities. We're sure that the registering authority is going to tell us what we can and can't do. And then, once the registration authorities have looked at it, next year at the World Assembly, our 20th anniversary assembly, what we'll try to get is the final approval of every year, once all the corrections at the registry offices have been made. Because the thing is, if the registry office doesn't make any major changes and amends everything, the idea is to be able to start operating now with the statutes that I think we'll be able to pass today, and that will start operating from tomorrow onwards. Because statutory changes actually aren't going to really make major changes until next year, when, of course, we hold our General Assembly. So I'm now going to hand the floor over to Austin, who's going to chair this debate, the statutes debate. Yesterday, by the way, I think the paper that you've got includes, does it include the modifications? No. Oh, okay. Yesterday we made several modifications to these statutes. The board virtually approved them, but you do have the final say. So, in your folders, you've got a document, which is this one. I don't know if you can see it. There are 3 columns. The left-hand column gives the current version of the article. In the middle, you've got the proposed change. And on the right, you've got a column with comments. As José María said yesterday at the board meeting, several improvements were made. What I'm going to try to do is include them in the explanation that I'm going to give you. You'll see them projected on the computer. You don't have it on your paper version because this is something that we debated yesterday, so we haven't been able to get the modifications included for today, but they are going to be projected. They are going to be included in my explanation, and on the screen I'll highlight in colour. I'm not going to go article by article, otherwise we'd be here till the cows come home, and it would be meaningless. But what I'm going to try to do is to highlight the main points, which of course are the ones that José María actually just explained to you. I mean, I hardly need to say that the statutes regulate our internal operation. It's not a very friendly document, but it's a very important one. And also, these statutes, as José María has already said, and I'm just going to reiterate his idea, are 18 years old. 18. They're grown up. And our organisation, just like any organisation over 18 years, has changed a great deal. All organizations do that, and ours is no different. And so we've got to a time in which our statutes really don't reflect the reality of the forum. So there are some changes that are major, and that's why. Another thing, there are some issues that José María has pointed out that actually you members don't notice, but actually those of us that are in the daily running of the organization have become almost obsolete. It's the membership fees, for example. They're setups that that actually are now meaningless because they were planned 18 years ago. So these are systems that actually now really don't work. They're obsolete. And my opinion as the manager is that we need to change them because they're now obsolete. So the idea is to try to find a solution. And I know that that was debated yesterday at the board, and we've reached a certain agreement on these matters. So of course, we're always awaiting what the General Assembly finally says. You'll also see that we can't just write what we want. I mean, there's a law, which is called the Basque Countries Associations Act, which actually governs how associations operate. And that conditions the way, what we write in these statutes. So there are things that we would have liked to write differently, for example, in Article 4 and 5, but the law actually forces us to write in a certain way. So I'm going to start. Article 2. Article 2, we've added an article which tries to clarify our social purpose, which makes it more understandable for our members and also for external bodies. And our social purpose is to promote family farming and sustainable rural development. Articles 3 and 4 now reflect the current situation. The aims of the association, we feel, are obsolete, and some new ones have been written that reflect reality. So actually, this isn't really a change, but it actually reflects the current reality. I'm not going to read all the aims because it's a list of what we do. It's what we talk about every time we meet in the General Assembly. And obviously what we hope to spend our time doing in the next years. Article 5, this actually does deserve something, a few words said about it. It's about territorial scope. Article 5 says the territorial scope in which it shall mainly carry out its functions is composed by the autonomous community of the Basque Country. That's what it looks like now. But the Associations Act actually forced us to write that. We've got to say that that actually is true, even though our organization is a major international organization. But this is something that the law forces us to write in this way. So what we've done is, okay, we know that we've got that legal obligation if there's no other option. But what we've done is added a short sentence at the end, which it says, without prejudice to the international significance of said functions. Now, move on. You'll see that there are many articles that actually don't change, where we've just written idem. That means that there's no change. Let's now just have a quick look at former Article 9. There's a comment there, and that's because the Association Act forces us to have a General Assembly every year, but in such an organization as ours, it's almost impossible to have all the organizers of the 5 contents present at an assembly. We can do that virtually, but physically it's actually impossible for all member organizations to come to the place where it's decided to hold the assembly. So what we do, and this is an agreement that the board and the assembly reached, is to organize every 4 years, or 4 or 5 years, a major conference on family farming, because at this event we can cover the travel costs of all the member organizations. That means that virtually all of them can come every 4 to 5 years, and then between each of these conferences we do what we're doing now. Well, the ones that can get here, that can pay their travel costs to come, and the others attend virtually. So we try to do it in that way. This is important, this note, and it's important that all members understand that this is something that was initially accepted by the board and the assembly. I'm going to give you a general explanation, and if at the end, if you've got any comments, please make them. But I just want you to understand the logic behind all of this. Article 13 says that the president can invite non-members to collaborate in the association's activities, which it means that there may be items on the agenda that require the presence of somebody who's not a member, because that issue may need expert information that an external person can give us. For example, if we pass these statutes, maybe we might need the assistance of a lawyer, or so these are people who, at a given moment in time, can contribute to our carryings on. And some of the guests that are here, some of the guests here today are actually not members of the forum. We're really happy that you're here. There are some. I'm not going to stop and talk about modifications. Some modifications were more content, and others were just the way they're written. Article 16, the new Article 16, and I'm on page, I don't know what page, it's 13 in the English version. I think it's 13 to 14 in the English version. Article 16 actually regulates the board, the WRF board. The board, in the strategic plan that was passed by the General Assembly, has a very important role. The strategic plan actually talks about carrying on strengthening the role of the board, and so we've decided to pay attention to this article.
Here we include what was suggested yesterday. The proposal was for the board to also have 2 people selected by the General Assembly, 2 members or member associations as replacements, if there would be a need of these replacements. This is something new that was added yesterday. And also, there was quite a lot of debate regarding the maximum and minimum number of the board. The proposal was to maintain a margin, to continue maintaining that and not having one specific figure, but having a minimum and a maximum. But we had between 5 and 20, but it couldn't be so big a gap. So we want a smaller gap if we want to have continuity. If that wouldn't make sense. Beyond that, in this article, there's a proposal of eliminating the existing dichotomy in which we had international assemblies or local assemblies in which only the member entities that were in this region would participate. So we would have a board with everyone during the first quarter, and then 2 or 3 more only with the local members. This is something that we would like to change. The proposal is to have only board meetings that before were called international meetings, but in fact it's just the board meeting. So that will be board meetings with everyone, as it should be. So what we want is to have board meetings with all the members and those participating in the board, and to have 2 meetings, one in the 4th quarter of the year, because we need to pass or at least discuss the previous working plan, and to plan for the next year, and then have another, let's say, virtual meeting in which we use new technologies throughout the rest of the year. So we can say at least 2. It could be that we would need to organize more board meetings, but now we will have board meetings with everyone. One of them that would be a face-to-face meeting and another virtual one. And these virtual boards already exist in other organizations. We wouldn't be the first to organize this kind of meeting. So the reality shows that this is possible. Also, in this article 16, we try to encourage a greater presence in the board of our women's and youth organizations. And also, we understand that many organizations integrate maybe a section of women or youth. So the spirit is, or the aim is for women and youth to have more presence in their organizations and in the board, and that is what we want to foster. Of course, it's nothing compulsory, but we will make the effort to try and encourage the presence of women and young people, which is also in accordance with the IYFF. Also, the board, as we said before, can invite, have guests with voice, but without vote in moments when it can be required. Continuing with the statutes. To Article 22. There are no big surprises. Some are very standard, some have changes, but they are changes that have to do more with how things are expressed. Maybe in Article 23, I think it should be mentioned that the meetings will be held at least twice per year, but of course, if we believe we need more, then this could be done. We discussed this issue, and we said we can also call a meeting if it's so requested by 3 entities. Here it says 10, but we discussed this and decided it should be 3 entities, the ones that require the organization of this meeting. Oh, sorry, it wasn't 3. Or if we had a half plus 1 of its members. So it should be at least twice a year, or on its own initiative if the members request it, and it should be half plus 1 of the members. Continuing, there have been many comments regarding the function of the president or the president's role. We also include the role of the vice president, and this is one of the suggestions of the law firm that has been helping us with the statutes, because this could make things easier in the case of the president not being present, because it would just make easier, for example, the organization of our board meeting. So we have the role of the secretary, of the treasurer. And now I'm in Article 30. What we try to do with this change is to reflect a reality that already exists. There is a body that is not a governing body, it's a technical body, and that is the Secretariat, and that is the team that works for the World Rural Forum, and that has a role in the organization. Before it was an invisible role. We just want to regulate this. And that's the aim of this change. What it says here is that the Secretariat is the body of the association in which the board or the General Assembly or the governance body may delegate their functions and powers. So the functions and powers belong to the board or assembly, and they can delegate this in the secretariat, and this is what happens nowadays. And we also thought it was positive to explain that it would be the board, the ones that appoints the director of that body that we call secretariat. A director that will be appointed by the board. Here in yellow, you see a small text that we decided to eliminate. The board decided to eliminate this because it went into details that really didn't correspond to this kind of statutes. Article 32 was a proposal of the law firm to regulate the responsibility of individuals or organizations that are part of the board. Here we included an article that was also discussed during the board meeting yesterday. What we agreed on doing, and summing this up, is to say that the members of the board will be liable, but there will not be a solidary liability, and I think this is said expressly. And that is how we worded it or changed this part of the article. So therefore, there's an individual responsibility, but not a solidary one. In Article 33, we try to regulate the incorporation of members. And there's two ways of joining the association. One is if you're invited by the association, or then you are directly invited to be part of the association. In this case, you wouldn't need the endorsement of other entities. But if the initiative is that of someone who hasn't been invited, they will need the endorsement not of 10 members, but of 3 members. And this is one of the changes that was suggested yesterday. You need the endorsement of 3 people. And when you're invited, you don't need the endorsement of other members. Here in Article 34, this is one of the issues that José Mari has already explained, so I'm not going to go into further detail. The statute that we have nowadays, we believe is confusing regarding the different types of members. There's too many, so what we want to do is to clarify the situation. So we have 3 kinds of members. One of them is the members or partners, which will be legal persons, as José Mari explained. Then there's another category, which are the honorary members, and maybe here we could have individuals according to the new proposal. And then there's a third category, which are what we call the protective members, which are also legal persons. And these entities, or what we now consider, and the change we made yesterday, is that this kind of partners and or members or protective members have voice and vote, even though honorary members, as honorary members, wouldn't have this voting capacity. So the first 2 kind of members would be able to vote, even though in fact in the history of our association we've never really voted, and the honorary members can have a voice but not voting rights. It was also said that honorary members will be invited or have the right to participate in general assemblies. In fact, what we would like is to invite them to participate because they have had a significant role in the foundation, maybe in the first years of creation of the World Forum, in which they had a very important role. And yesterday, the board also acknowledged the role of these members at the starting point of the forum. The next article is the one that has to do with fees, and one of those articles that we discussed in depth. I would like to say that we have a system that doesn't work properly, so we need to provide a solution. Yesterday, we tried to find the adequate formula, which was discussed, but what we would like is for members to have a fee of 1,100 euros per year. That is the existing proposal, allowing that those members that cannot pay in cash can pay in kind. This has the aim of making official something that already exists, as we have members that are not able to pay their fee. Not a fee of 1,100, nor a smaller one. So what happened before is that we had unpaid fees, and these were not big amounts, but it ends up not being a positive element, even though it doesn't have a relevant influence in the budget. So we thought we needed to improve the situation. So opening or giving the opportunity of paying in kind is just acknowledging a reality. And it also confirms our aim in the forum, because what conditions our alliance is not the money that we have, but the will of working together. Money is just at a second level, let's say. What we did establish is that we shouldn't just set an amount. There was a discussion regarding the amount, and we also talked about it being the board, in any case, the one that decides to say yes or accept a payment in kind. And if I understood this correctly, there will be a list of criteria, and the board, according to this criteria, will decide if they accept a payment in kind. And they will be the ones taking the final decision. Regarding the protective members, they wouldn't be able to pay in kind. That's a fundamental change between both categories. Other kinds, or normal members, let's say, would be able to pay in kind if the board accepted this, but not protective partners. So this is a way of trying to protect our economy. And I believe that makes sense. Honorary members don't have a compulsory fee, but they could donate money, always on a voluntary basis, of course. So these members, the honorary members, could decide to make contributions in a voluntary way. If you've checked our website, you would have seen that the forum wants to encourage the existence of honorary members and their donations. You know that the forum counts with many members, and there's the honorary members that usually contribute and donate money to different kinds of organizations and NGOs. So their contributions would be this kind of donations, and we would like them to continue making these contributions in a voluntary way, as this would be significant for the forum's economy and for their commitment with the forum. And of course, this needs to be included, and we believe the rest of articles don't change. Sanctioning regime is the one established by law, and that has to be included in the statutes. And if I'm not wrong, there weren't any other articles. Oh, sorry, yes. Article 48, I think it's the last one we should comment on. Article 48, that used to be Article 39 in the Chapter 5 or Section 5, says, or before it said that the 3 members had to get together to make amendments in the statutes. But this is not really adapted to our reality because we have members that don't live here and that speak different languages. So the proposal is to have a more classical or common system in which we have a proposal drafted. This is shared with all members. It's discussed in the board. It's discussed in the General Assembly. We make the necessary amendments that entities consider should be made, and once we reach consensus, we pass this in the General Assembly or an extraordinary General Assembly. So the proposal is to make amendments in a way that is really adapted to the reality of the World Rural Forum, with members speaking different languages and coming from different countries. And I think that was everything regarding statutes, because the rest of the changes are just standard changes or changes required by law. So now I'm going to make a proposal. We didn't comply with the officially saying that we're having an ordinary or extraordinary assembly. So this could be a problem if we decided to take a decision regarding this issue. So I think that we should consider that this is an extraordinary assembly because the statutes require that the amendments in statutes are addressed in extraordinary assemblies. I know we've all participated and been present in many assemblies, and I say now the extraordinary assembly starts. And that is to address a specific issue that has been to be addressed in an extraordinary assembly. So regarding the statutes, this would be an extraordinary assembly, if you all agree.
Nos diga, no, tienen que volver a reunirse ustedes en la asamblea extraordinaria.
It could be that the registration office says that you need to organize another extraordinary meeting, and it wouldn't make sense for Alberto, Fernando, or Nathaniel to come back again to say, yes, we've already discussed the statutes and we've agreed on them. So I would ask this assembly for their authorization so that we consider this to be an extraordinary assembly, at least during the time in which we've discussed the statutes. So I would ask all the members of the board if we'd truly reflected what we discussed yesterday. And I would also ask the other members if they have any other comments or amendments they would like to make. Does the board agree on what we've decided yesterday and the way we've understood what was discussed yesterday, or are there any comments? I think they're all nodding, so I think that's something positive. Any other members of the Assembly have any comments? I did this yesterday and I will repeat this again. This association wouldn't be alive if it weren't for the members that from now on we will be calling honorary members. There were several people here that for 20 years have provided their support, and we want them to continue providing their support, and we want them to be part of the forum, and we will never be able to thank them enough for their effort and contribution to the project. It is true that we've now become an association of organizations, but we should never forget where we come from. So I would like to sincerely thank the members, individual members that in many cases were founding members and that for many years have contributed to the creation and life of the association. Okay. Whoa, we're almost on time. Yesterday, we had at least a 1 hour delay on schedule. I don't know what went wrong yesterday, but today we've been able to more or less do everything on time. Would you like to address some words to the floor? Well, I would like to just inform you of what you know. We have now prepared a celebration lunch because together we've been able to get the declaration of the decade of family farming. It has involved the effort of all of you, all the organizations, and all of you belonging to the Forum's family. And we've organized a lunch to congratulate you for your work.
Va a ser aquí mismo en el hotel, si no me equivoco.
Lunch will be here at the hotel. I think it's to the left of this room, if I'm not wrong. So I hope you join us, because this has been organized for you all. And also I would like to add that we have a date for the next General Assembly, and that will be at the end of March 2019, here in this same hotel, in the same venue. If I'm not wrong, on the 29th.
Fecha concreta para nuestra próxima reunión y bueno, eso. Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you all. When someone calls you and says you should be or get involved in so and so, you reflect and say, well, maybe I'm going to try and change this. But there's something clear. The week in March in which we celebrate all of the events that have been explained by Stephanie today, that week, we won't move the dates. Be aware of that. So you cannot miss these meetings. Whatever is going on in your life, you should be here. So to close this meeting, things are going well because we all contribute with our best efforts in this project. We contribute with our knowledge, our experience, our will, our enthusiasm, our dialogue capacity, and everything positive we can contribute with. And as long as we continue like this, we will have a great future. But if we forget about this and we change the view for the forum, we won't have a future. So for 19 years, we have been working in a positive manner. Let's continue at least for 19 more. I hope you enjoy your stay here. I'm just mainly talking to those that come from abroad. Thank you. We're really grateful. We sometimes are not aware of how difficult it is for you to come here. I guess that coming from Nepal, Philippines, Uruguay, Santiago de Chile, Côte d'Ivoire, Congo, Rome, or Aragon, it's a great effort. You have to stop doing other things to be able to be here in this meeting. So we're really happy. We're enthusiastic. We want to continue working and doing things in a better way. So let's all congratulate each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Atzoko gaiak ere sartu ditugu, osea que...
Bueno, ondo ditu da soziona.
Bai, ondo ditu da gai horra. Ibili behar dut kontu pixka batekin.